Hi everyone, today we are going to solve a volume related problem, and we are going to use algebra to solve this problem. Three cubes of metal whose edges are in the ratio 3:4:5 are melted down into a single cube whose diagonal is 12 times square root of 3 centimeters. Find the edges of the three cubes. So in this case, first what we have to see here is that there are three cubes of metal whose edges are in the ratio 3:4:5, which means there are cubes of three different sizes. So the edge of one is to the edge of the other and is to the edge of the third cube. That is in the ratio 3:4:5, and that these three are melted down, and that metal is taken into forming a bigger cube. And this cube's diagonal, a cube's diagonal is from, let's say, if this take this face from this corner to the diagonally across corner, that is the diagonal here, and the length of that diagonal is given here, 12 times square root of 3 centimeters. And find the edges of the three smaller cubes. So first, when we have a ratio like this, 3:4:5, the actual values would be 3x, 4x, and 5x. So let's say the edges are in the ratio 3:4:5. We represent the actual values as 3x, 4x, and 5x, because 3:4:5 is the simplest form. So the actual values will be multiples of 3, 4, and 5. So let's take this as the edges at this point of time. Let 3x, 4x, and 5x be the respective edges of the three cubes. Then the volume of the first cube is, if you need to find the volume of the cube, the formula is length times breadth or width times height, or this is height actually. So length times breadth times height, but again in the case of a cube, all the edges are of equal lengths. So if this is 3x, this is also 3x, and this is also 3x. So 3x times 3x times 3x, which is 3x to the whole cube. Similarly here, volume of this cube is 4x to the whole cube, because it's 4x times 4x times 4x. Height times length times width or breadth. And for this cube, it is again 5x times 5x times 5x, which is 5x to the whole cube. So these are the volumes of these three cubes. And why do we take the volumes? Volumes represent the space taken up by this object. And again here, volume represents the space taken up by this object and this object. So if we are melting these and then combining them, then that would be equal to the volume of this whole object. So the volume of this object is equal to the volume of this plus volume of this plus volume of this. So that's why we are finding out the volume of these three smaller cubes. So now let's try to add them. This 3x to the whole cube is nothing but 3x, or 3 times 3 times 3 times x times x times x. So that is equal to 3 times 3 times 3 is 27 times x cube. Similarly here, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64 and times x cube. Similarly, 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125 times x cube. And when we add all the three of them, we have x cube terms here. So in addition, we always take the coefficients here. In this, the coefficient of x cube is 27. So we add up 27 plus 64 plus 125. So that is equal to 216 times x cube. So this is the volume the total volume of the 3, and it is also equal to the volume of the bigger cube, which is formed by melting these 3 cubes and using the metal to form this. So edge of the large cube. Now, since we know the volume of the large cube, although we don't know the value of x at this point of time, but this volume of the large cube in terms of x is 216x cube. So if this is the volume, what would be the edge of this cube? And we know that for the volume of a cube, the formula is length times breadth times width. And we also know that volume is equal to height times length times width, which are all equal. So basically, there is a cubical value that you get here. So if you want to find the edge of the large cube, it's the inverse of this. That is cube root of 216 times x cube. So inside, if you look at 216, it is made up of 6 times 6 times 6. And x cube is made up of x times x times x. And when you look at the cube root of this number, for every 3 sixes in terms of multiplication, we can take 1 6 outside. So the answer is 6x. So 6x is the value of the edge that is shown here. Now let's assume that this edge is a, because we don't know the value here yet. But we have another value that we know of, that is 12 root 3. And that is the diagonal length of the diagonal. The diagonal is equal to square root of 3 times a. This is the formula which shows the relationship between the length of the diagonal and the edge. Now if you see, if make this cube hollow, the diagonal here will be from this edge to that edge, right? So that is this length of this diagonal is related to the edge with this formula. Diagonal is equal to square root of 3 times a. Now we are expressing the diagonal in terms of the edge a, but we know the value of the diagonal. It has a numerical value here, which is 12 square root of 3. So instead of diagonal, we can actually replace this value 12 square root of 3 here. 12 square root of 3 is equal to square root of 3 times a. Now there is only one variable, which is a. So a is equal to 12 square root of 3 divided by square root of 3. And we know that square root of 3 and square root of 3 gets cancelled, because the square root of 3 is related to this 12 in terms of multiplication. Here it's 12 times square root of 3. So this square root of 3 and this square root of 3 will get cancelled. So a will be equal to 12. So we know that the edge here is equal to 12. And we also have the same edge represented as 6x. So these two should be equal, because this 6x represents this edge in terms of x, and this 12 is the actual value of the edge. So 6x should be equal to 12. And if 6x is equal to 12, what is the value of x? X is equal to 12 divided by 6, which is 2. So value of x is 2. Now we know that the size of the edges, that is what we need to find. Find the edges of the 3 cubes. The edge, the value of that is 3 times x. In this case, x is equal to 2. So 3 times 2, which is 6 centimeter. And in this case, it's 4x, 4 times 2, which is 8 centimeters. And here, it's 5 times x, which is 5 times 2, 10 centimeters. So these are the edges. I hope the explanation was clear. If you have difficulties following any part of this, just let me know in the comment section. I'll try to get back to you. Or otherwise, happy learning. Have a great day. Bye.